Mom, I'm really sorry, but I've been thinking lately that I might have to drop out of college. I just can't afford it anymore. What do you mean? Shouldn't you be able to get by with $3,000 a month? Isn't what I send you enough? Wait, Mom, you've never sent me anything, have you? Her words hit me like a punch. I was sure I'd been receiving money from her every month. There's only one explanation for this. Anger started to boil up within me. The person I decided to confront was my own mother. My name is Beatrix. I lost my husband early, and I've been raising my daughter, Anita, all by myself. Our life together has always been a stretch. I never had the time or money to worry about my appearance. Did I look so miserable? Occasionally, my mother-in-law would look at me with disdain. Beatrix, can't you at least try to improve yourself a little? Your hair, your clothes, you look, well, a bit shabby. I'm sorry, I'll try to do better. It hurt to be criticized, but she was right. I had no choice but to accept her words. I've never let myself get angry or snap back at her. In the spring of a certain year, my daughter, Anita, was accepted to her dream college. It was a far commute from home, so she decided to live on her own. Anita, I'll do my best to send you money, so you have to do your best to study. Don't push yourself too hard. Remember, your health comes first. Mom, that's my line. I'll work part-time too. Don't worry about sending me money. Her thoughtful words filled my heart. Anita had grown up to be such a kind child. Even though our life had been tough compared to her friends and other families, I wanted to support Anita and make her college life as fulfilling as possible. I didn't want her to have to worry about money, so I worked harder than ever before. $3,000 a month, that was my goal. If I could send her that much, she wouldn't have to work a part-time job. My mother-in-law noticed my efforts and spoke to me. So, you're sending money to Anita. Can you really afford it? I hope that doesn't mean less for us. You know we rely on your support. I had always been grateful to my father-in-law when he was alive, and after his death, I continued to support my in-laws out of gratitude. Don't worry, I've taken on more jobs, so I'll still be able to give you your share. Oh, I see. That's fine then. After losing my husband, my income was unstable, and I guess my mother-in-law was worried. I understood her concern, so I never thought about reducing my contribution to my in-laws. Supporting my in-laws and sending money to Anita, it was more than $3,000 in total. Still, I managed to send it all, even if it meant cutting back on my own food and clothing expenses. Working all day and night was tough, but the messages from Anita always encouraged me. Mom, I've made friends. Mom, there's this weird professor, but the class is so interesting. Mom, I didn't do well in class today and got scolded, but I'll keep trying. Reading such innocent messages from Anita, I could sense she was enjoying her college life. Any exhaustion? I felt utterly blown away, a mix of pride and concern swirling within me. I had poured my heart and soul into working hard for Anita's happiness. But as time passed, her messages became sparse until they stopped altogether. A few months later, the cheerful updates ceased entirely. Whenever I reached out in worry, her responses were curt, "I'm okay." Could it be that college life had consumed her, causing her to forget about her mother? Or perhaps she had found a boyfriend and was solely focused on him. One day, lost in such thoughts, my phone rang suddenly. It was Anita. "Hello, Anita. What's up?" It was unusual for her to call. We typically converse face-to-face at home. Even after she moved to college, most of our communication was through text. "Yeah, I'm sorry, Mom. What happened?" Anita sounded down. I could sense something was amiss, so I concentrated on her voice through my smartphone. I ran out of money. I'm thinking maybe I should quit college." Anita's words hit me like a ton of bricks. "What do you mean you're out of money?" "I'm sorry, I tried my best," she said, her voice trembling on the verge of tears. I had faithfully sent her $3,000 every month without fail. It wasn't a lavish amount, but it should have been enough to prevent her from struggling to the point of contemplating dropping out. Besides, she was supposed to be working part-time as well. I couldn't fathom how she could be in such dire straits. Could she have fallen in with the wrong crowd, neglecting her studies to squander her money? I entertained the thought for a moment before shaking it off. No, that's not like Anita. "Anita, it's okay. Take a deep breath and tell me what happened." "Yeah, I was trying to make ends meet with rent, groceries, and my part-time job earnings. I had to dip into my savings, and now that's all gone too. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry." "Hold on a second. What about the money? I send you every month." That should cover your rent and living expenses, right? No. No matter how I calculated it, the numbers didn't add up. If Anita was spending her salary, my remittances, and even dipping into her savings, something was seriously wrong. But she didn't seem to be lying. Anita, you never sent me any money, did you? Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. That's impossible. I've been sending you $3,000 every month. Did you check properly? Are you sure there's no money in your account? There's nothing. I've been keeping a close eye on my banking. If you'd sent me that much money, I definitely would have noticed. The shock hit me like a punch to the head, leaving me feeling dizzy. It was clear Anita hadn't been receiving the money, and it was causing her a lot of trouble. You don't need to drop out of college. I'll send the money right away, so don't worry. Do you have something to eat today? Are you okay? You're not getting sick, are you? I'm fine. I switched to a job where I get meals, and my friends have been worried about me. They've been sharing some food with me. That's great. You have good friends. We need to thank them next time. But Anita, you're already having a hard time. I don't want you to struggle anymore because of me. So that's why you didn't tell me until the situation got this critical. Thank you. But listen, for me, seeing you in such a difficult situation is much worse. So please leave the rest to me. With that, Anita finally let out her emotions and started crying. I wondered when was the last time I heard her cry like this. After comforting Anita and hanging up the phone, I immediately took action driven by a growing anger. I decided to confront my mother-in-law who lived nearby. Oh my, what's the matter, Beatrix? Showing up without a call? How rude. Never mind that. What have you been doing with the money I've been giving you each month? What money? Of course, that money is for living expenses, she replied, her face momentarily twitching when I mentioned the money for Anita. I'm talking about the money for Anita. I was giving that to you too, right? The remittance to Anita was not directly transferred by me into her account. I've been handing it directly to my mother-in-law, who lives nearby, and she offered to make the transfer herself when she learned it was for Anita. So, I have been giving her an additional $3,000 for Anita's remittance. I would have declined if it was only about transferring the money, but there was a reason I didn't. That's because she said, I want to contribute to my granddaughter too. That's what you said, right? I trusted you and gave you the money. But what do you mean you didn't transfer it? My mother-in-law had convinced me with that, even though she was getting money from me. I thought it was her kindness toward Anita and trusted her. What are you talking about? I've been transferring money to Anita's account every month. Yes, I have. Please stop lying so blatantly. Anita has told me that she never received any transfers. Oh my, for her to lie like that. What kind of child is she, Beatrix? Maybe it's your parenting that's the problem. Excuse me? Hearing my own daughter being called a liar made me feel a rush of blood to my head. But if I lost my temper and forgot myself here, it would play right into her hands. I told myself to calm down, took a deep breath, and spoke again. Anita doesn't lie. If you insist on this, show me the bank statements where you made the transfers. I threw those away a long time ago. Listen, by checking Anita's account history, it's easy to see whether you really transferred the money or not. Even after knowing this, are you still going to call Anita a liar? Anyone could think of this, but when I said it, my mother-in-law seemed at a loss for words. She huffed again, muttering stubbornly under her breath. So persistent. I took a deep breath and continued, if you insist that you transferred the money, we should let the police investigate. The police? Isn't that a bit dramatic? It's not. This is about money. You said you transferred it, but it didn't show up. That sounds like a crime to me. We need to get it properly investigated. I don't think we need to go that far. Well, then I'll contact them now. No, stop. As I pretended to call the police, she lunged to snatch the phone from my hands. She missed and stumbled, then fell down and started crying. I never expected the mere mention of the police to have such an effect. In reality, I wasn't sure if the police would do anything in a situation like this where it was obvious that a family member was involved. But the word police itself seemed to weigh heavily on her. Despite her sobbing, I felt nothing. Anita, who had tried so hard not to cry, was the one who had suffered. According to her subsequent confession, she had always loved shopping. She probably had a shopping addiction, although she didn't seem to realize it. She tearfully told me about how her husband had once cut up her credit cards and how difficult it was for her. As far as I could tell, it was entirely her own doing, but she didn't seem to understand that. I suspected something was off. My mother-in-law kept getting the same amount of money even after he passed away, but I started getting requests for money earlier than expected. That never happened when he was around because he never gave me any money. When I went grocery shopping, he would check all the receipts, and I had to return every cent of the change. Can you believe that? It was awful. I felt so pitiful. I couldn't begin to understand what she thought was pitiful and didn't bother trying. In other words, when her husband was alive, he managed the household finances and kept her from having any extra money. When he was gone, I finally had some money. I started buying things I couldn't afford before, and, well, I fell a little short. Then you mentioned sending money to Anita, so you took Anita's money. Do you realize that's theft? Theft? That sounds so awful. I was just borrowing it with no intention of returning it. Anita suffered because of your selfishness. She's young, she can handle it. Caught off guard by her incomprehensible retort, I was at a loss for words. I've been deprived for so long. I couldn't buy anything I wanted, couldn't even go out to eat or travel. I had such a hard life. Young people can work and play as much as they want, so why shouldn't I take some money? I stood there speechless, staring at my mother-in-law as she cried and screamed, and all I could think was that I had trusted this person. My father-in-law had done me many favors, but now that I think about it, I can't recall my mother-in-law ever being kind to me. However, when Anita was still a little girl, my mother-in-law did buy her various things, so I thought she was expressing affection for Anita in her own way. And I was relieved. Looking back, I suspect all that shopping was just to satisfy her own desires. I failed to see that, and I caused Anita unnecessary suffering. Such a gentle child, I can never regret it enough. Mother-in-law, no, Evelyn. I intentionally called her by her first name. I don't want to think of her as my mother, even if it's just in-law. I cannot forgive you. After that, I sought free legal advice and did everything I could to recover the money, but you can't take from a person who has nothing. However, I had a trump card. Before my father-in-law passed away, he left me a will giving me the rights to his property. At that time, I wondered why he left it to me, but now I can guess that he might have been worried about his wife's reckless behavior. Naturally, my mother-in-law demanded that I renounce the inheritance, but I firmly refused. I want to praise my past self for staying firm despite being severely criticized as a greedy daughter-in-law. No matter what they say, I felt that I couldn't disregard my father-in-law's feelings. I didn't know the reason or the circumstances, but maybe I felt something. So technically, the house and the land are mine and my mother-in-law is just living there rent-free. I decided to sell the house. That meant the parasitic mother-in-law living there was in the way. So I contacted my mother-in-law's parents. This contact information was secretly given to me by my father-in-law, just in case. I really admire his foresight. That's why it's such a shame he didn't have a good eye for women. I knew that my mother-in-law had always hated her own family, but the reason became clear when I contacted them. They were a traditional farming family with strong tendencies toward male chauvinism. A stranger like me called, and they listened with a suspicious attitude, but they gladly agreed to take in my mother-in-law. It seemed like they wanted free labor. The conversation progressed quickly, and one day, out of the blue, her family came to pick her up, an event that my mother-in-law couldn't have predicted. I'll never forget the color draining from her face. When I took her brother, who came to pick her up, to her house, now my mother-in-law is doing tough farm work under strict supervision. She can't even go shopping at the supermarket, let alone squander money, and she seems to be living the life without touching money at all. Due to the stress, she seems to have aged quickly and is working every day as a wrinkled, frail, ghost-like figure with white hair. Looking at the recent bank statement of the money I just transferred to Anita, I smiled, thinking that if I saw her at night, I might scream. The house sold easily. It wasn't in a particularly good location, but once I decided I was okay with selling it for a low price, a buyer came forward immediately. The amount was enough to recoup the money wasted by my mother-in-law. I used that money without hesitation for my living expenses, and I sent Anita the money I earned from working. It's all money, but somehow the money I got from selling the house feels tainted, and I didn't like that. I've transferred this month's money just now. With that thought, I quickly texted Anita. Even if I hadn't transferred the money, as long as I had communicated that I had sent it to Anita, she wouldn't have discovered the mistake so late. I regret now for neglecting such simple communication due to my busy schedule. The reply came swiftly, got it? The message full of Anita's usual energy, accompanied by a string of cute emojis. She checked so quickly, but these days it seems you can easily check your bank balance on your mobile phone. I don't understand it at all, so I can only admire the adaptability of the young. Since then, Anita started sending messages frequently again. With the money reliably reaching her, her life must have become stable. It's clear from her texts that she's energetically continuing college without quitting. While I was feeling pleased, another message arrived from Anita. Looking at it, my eyes widened and I broke into a grin. Mom, there's someone I want you to meet. I didn't expect this day to come. It was all worth it. I can't sit around. I need to prepare something good. I changed my plan and headed to a high-end supermarket I don't usually go to. Since I no longer have to send money to my mother-in-law, there's a bit more wiggle room in my life. I've even been able to quit a few of the jobs I was juggling. I wondered what kind of food my daughter's partner likes. With a bit of premature speculation, I laughed. In the near future, I plan to invite the fresh-faced couple to our home and treat them with the best hospitality I can muster.
Have you ever heard the saying, your thoughts shape your words, words turn into actions, actions become habits, habits define your character, and your character shapes your destiny? Simply put, what you think can decide where you end up in life. It might sound deep, but it's a straightforward concept. Your thoughts influence how you live. By the time you realize this, it could be too late. This is the story I want to share today. I'm Rebecca, 54 years old, working part-time as a homemaker. Married for 30 years, our 2 kids are grown, and my husband and I enjoy our days together as a couple. Retirement is approaching. I mentioned this over dinner to my husband, who's 3 years older than me and will retire in 3 years. He's been a banker for about 35 years since college. In the past, it was common to use the retirement bonus to pay off the mortgage and plan for post-retirement life. Paying off the mortgage at once with a lump sum was the norm. But times have changed. Oh, really? My husband explained that only a handful of companies offer retirement bonuses in the hundreds of thousands, and getting tens of thousands is considered good. Besides, there's the challenge of needing $200,000 for retirement, and more households prefer keeping as much cash as possible. I was quite intrigued by my husband's banker-like perspective. Regarding our house, what if we pay off a chunk to save on interest? We can then manage the remaining loan with our reduced living expenses. Fortunately, I can work as a contract employee even after retiring. It's comforting to have a financially savvy husband. You're reliable. I complimented him while pouring a glass of wine. One day, some unexpected guests arrived at our house. "Hey, Rebecca, it's been a while," greeted my 6-year-old brother and his wife, Annabelle. I must have made a face upon seeing them. They weren't pleasant people, but I kept my thoughts to myself. "Why are you here in the middle of the day on a weekday?" I inquired. Annabelle promptly replied, "Well, we just built a new house, and we thought of getting a congratulatory gift." A congratulatory gift? It felt rather impolite to come seeking gifts, and I'm sure many would agree. However, these individuals considered it normal, posing a problem. Reflecting on it, they've been money-focused since their marriage. Back when they got married, I was still in college, and my brother shamelessly said, "You're over 20 now, so you're an adult. Give us a gift, whether you're earning or not. Going to college as a woman is a waste. Use that tuition money for our gift instead." Even my parents were astonished by my brother's greed. I thought no one could be more greedy than him, but it turned out Annabelle was equally miserly. They talk about money all the time, even during Christmas and New Year's. "Rebecca, how much do you make? What's your husband's bonus? What assets does your family have? How much is your father getting in pension?" Annabelle inquired. There's a recent popular web service that analyzes people's brains just by entering their names, and I can imagine if they used it, the word money would dominate. Dealing with such vulgar and uncivilized people is something I'd only endure when necessary, and yet, here they are, expecting a congratulatory gift for their new house. Wait, a new house? I learned that my brother retired at 60 this year. Annabelle seems to be working part-time, but, well, this might sound odd. But did you secure a proper loan for your new house? When I inquired, my brother responded, "Loan? Not at all. I bought this house with my retirement money and the inheritance from her parents." It turns out my brother used his $80,000 retirement funds, $140,000 in savings, and his sister-in-law's parents' $250,000 inheritance to purchase a house. I've been in a rental for a long time, and I wanted to experience living in a house. A new house is definitely nice. Indeed, it's really nice. Much cleaner than this old house. It's barrier-free, and will be secure in our old age. However, I'm concerned about such a risky move. But you still have 5 years until you start receiving your pension. Don't you think it would be better to have some savings for your old age? When I mentioned that, my sister-in-law shot me a contemptuous look. "You're such a worrywart. We've thought about those things." At that moment, my brother and his wife exchanged a creepy smile as they leaned in close to each other. What are they plotting? I discovered their scheme a month later. "Rebecca, your dad collapsed. I got that call from my mother during my lunch break at work. My father was perfectly fine when I spoke to him a week ago. Why did this happen?" I informed my workplace and immediately rushed to the hospital. Upon arrival, my husband was already there, offering comfort to my haggard and slouched shoulder mother. "How's Dad doing?" I inquired, prompting my husband to explain that instead of my mother, my father had collapsed in the bathroom and was rushed unconscious to the hospital. He had been diagnosed with a subarachnoid hemorrhage, undergoing immediate surgery and still undergoing treatment. I see. Did you inform my brothers? Yes, I did, but they mentioned discussing the inheritance before visiting his bedside. So, rather than coming to the hospital, they chose to consult with a lawyer at the law firm. How money-focused can those insensitive couples be? My father is still alive, albeit in critical condition, with a chance of the worst outcome, but it seems inhumane to prioritize sorting out finances while he's still fighting. I'm at a loss for words. Even my mother wears a resigned expression towards their behavior. Honestly, I'm appalled. What kind of heartless individuals are they? The surgery on my father was successful. However, his elderly condition remained precarious, and making predictions seemed impossible. While my mother and I took turns visiting, my brother and his wife were nowhere to be found. Then, a week after the surgery, we received a call from the hospital. "Your father's condition has suddenly changed." My husband, mother, and I rushed to the hospital, only to find my brother and his wife surprisingly already there. "You arrived early." I commented to my brother, who oddly wore a cheerful expression. "Well, why would he look so happy when our parent is in critical condition?" The reason became apparent quickly. "Hey, what about your father's life insurance? Can you ask your mother about it?" My sister-in-law whispered audibly in the hushed hospital room. I shot her a glare, but she appeared genuinely puzzled, saying, "What's wrong?" That foolish expression of hers only fueled my anger. Then the doctor entered the room to check on my father. I believe today is the turning point. The doctor informed us with a serious expression, and my husband, mother, and I broke down in tears. Memories of my father flashed through my mind in an instant. My mother was in the same state, holding my father's hand and calling out to him with a tearful voice. "Oh, but we finally get it. Yeah, now our retirement is secure." I overheard my brother and his wife conversing as we mourned. They seemed eagerly anticipating my father's passing. I recalled what they had said earlier. Their focus was on their retirement, connecting it to my father's inheritance, the new house they built by depleting their savings, the matters with the law firm, and this callous statement. My mother seemed to grasp their intentions and shot a sudden look at my brother and his wife. They had a hyena-like appearance, fixated on their prey and eagerly awaiting its demise. People often say that when anger peaks, it transforms into an unusual calmness, and that proved true. My mother appeared to share the same sentiments, and after silently observing my brother and his wife, she suggested, "Let's step outside for a moment." We exited the hospital room and settled into a discussion in the hospital's lounge. You two really have no idea, my mother stated with a mix of disbelief and perhaps pity as she looked at them. What do you mean? My sister-in-law noticed the shift in my mother's demeanor, her expression suddenly stiffening. My brother maintained a relaxed look, but I wondered if it was only a matter of time. My mother continued, "There's no inheritance for you two to claim." What? What do you mean, Mom? My brother's expression abruptly tensed. There's nothing to inherit. The house and land we live on are in my name, and your father has no assets. Come to think of it, I've heard this before. My father was the type who didn't hoard money. He had a habit of spending all he had, and my mother handled all the household finances. The only money my father possessed was for his daily cigarette expenses. Aside from a vague understanding of money, he was a good husband and father. So my mother and father managed quite well together. In reality, my father had no significant assets, and if anything, he only had a few dollars for his cigarette expenses in the coin purse he always carried. But he has life insurance, right? Yes, but I am the beneficiary. It's none of your concern. My mother sharply replied. Your father is still alive, and this couple is only thinking about money, bringing up life insurance. As I was about to voice my frustration, my mother intervened. Firstly, your father is not someone who would succumb to something like this. He stayed calm during a motorcycle accident, when caught in an avalanche while skiing, and even when he was ill. He has overcome cancer and liver cirrhosis with sheer willpower. If you're concerned about inheritance, shouldn't you be more focused on your own spouse than your stepfather? My mother chuckled while addressing my sister-in-law, and my brother was the one expressing his frustration. Mom, I'm still alive. Don't talk about inheritance. It's inappropriate. It's rude. Their annoyance was likely because they couldn't inherit anything. However, it's the same for you. You're saying the same thing to your father now. Do you realize that? You're being disrespectful and uncivilized. My mother's words left them speechless, forcing them to remain silent. And there was no inheritance to claim. They stood there stunned. What should we do? We built a house and bought a car because we expected an inheritance. How will we sustain ourselves from next month? Last month, we went on a shopping spree using credit, and we still have outstanding loans for the air conditioner and refrigerator we purchased when we moved. My husband and I observed these 60-year-olds panicking due to a lack of funds. I quietly suggested, firstly, it's wrong to rely on money that you're not even sure of receiving. You lack proper planning skills. The two of them seemed too drained to argue with me. Then my brother proposed, let's sell a house. It's the only solution. While it sounded like a sensible idea, my sister-in-law vehemently opposed it. No, that house is my sanctuary. I won't sell it. We've finally found a peaceful place to live, and I won't give it up because of this. Oh, if your father doesn't have an inheritance, why not consider sharing your mother's inheritance? Yes, let's do that. It's a good idea, my sister-in-law suggested, approaching my mother. I'm still alive. My mother's response was so comical that I nearly burst out laughing, but I had to hold it in. My brother looked at me. Help me out here. I could almost hear his plea in his expression. At that moment, my husband, a banker, chimed in. Why not consult a financial planner? If you have no income and no savings, you're in a hopeless situation. Selling the house seems appropriate. Fortunately, there's no mortgage, so selling it can bring in some cash for you to live on. Selling the house is the only way to escape this predicament. However, my sister-in-law remained adamant. We won't sell the house. Absolutely not. If that's your stance, then contribute to our living expenses. After all, you're siblings, right? This time, she redirected her attention to us, but my husband skillfully sidestepped the request. It's not feasible. I only invest in ventures with assured returns. My husband's words, shaped by years in the loan department, carried weight. Even if there were potential returns, I wouldn't invest in such a couple. Amidst our discussion, the doctor called. Finally, the moment had arrived. I was mentally prepared for it. When my mother returned from the hospital room, she informed us, It might not be good news for you. Your father has regained consciousness. She said this while casting a cold stare at my brother and his wife. My husband and I felt a wave of relief at my mother's words, and tears welled in our eyes. My brother and his wife, having realized they would not inherit anything, seemed indifferent to my father's condition. Yet perhaps they were attempting to maintain the facade of concerned children. "Dad, that's great. Yes, you're right." They uttered these insincere words. As my husband and I entered the hospital room after my mother, my brother and his wife trailed behind with seemingly innocent faces. Just before they could enter, my mother halted them. "You two are excused. Your obsession with money sickens me. If you have the time to visit, contemplate your life from tomorrow onwards." She dismissed them like stray dogs and concluded with this remark: "I'll leave you with this message. Thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, habits become character, and character becomes destiny." My brother and his wife were left stunned by my mother's unexpected speech. Huh? In essence, your thoughts ultimately shape your destiny. Unless you alter your thinking, your destiny remains unchanged. Reflect on this carefully. Consider how foolish, unsightly, and pitiable your actions are. With that, my mother firmly shut the door to the hospital room, signaling her determination to break ties with her son. Following that, my brother and his wife were compelled to sell their house. They had to part with their recently constructed home and land for less than a quarter of the $400,000 they initially paid, just 6 months after putting it on the market. This was due to the discovery that the ground in the area was quite unstable, causing land prices to plummet. Moreover, the surplus of houses for sale in the vicinity led to buyers offering very low prices. Despite their reluctance, they had no choice but to sell the house. The unemployed couple now has only a meager amount of cash to sustain them in their old age. It's likely that the funds will deplete before they begin receiving their pension in 5 years. My brother resorts to working as a day laborer for daily wages, while my sister-in-law takes on part-time work. It's a lamentable tale of individuals self-destructing by relying on their parents' inheritance. I hope they grasp the gravity of my mother's words. Surprisingly, there are many stories like this. When people become fixated on money, their judgment often falters. A previous customer of mine once remarked, "When my parents pass away, I'll use the inheritance to pay off my mortgage. So please arrange it for a 20-year term." Such cases are not uncommon. It appears that such situations are prevalent in the world. It's indeed a significant issue. Bankers, dealing with a diverse range of individuals, undoubtedly have a challenging job. There are countless untold stories due to confidentiality. Perhaps I should let my husband take over as the next storyteller. He might have even more fascinating tales to share. Just kidding. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.